Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 9 of Town Hall. I'm here, as always, with my esteemed co-host, Mayor Steve Schewell. All right, for our last topic, I wanted to save this one because even though we did say at the top that all of these things that we've covered, safety, housing, infrastructure, sort of bleed into the others. You know, they're all interconnected. I felt like equity was one that did have more of a sort of umbrella, as you mentioned, and covers a lot of different things that we've already talked about. But thinking about sort of Durham's ethos as a whole in the way that we approach equity and how that manifests itself throughout the city, how would you, what things have you seen over the last year in Durham in 2018, and maybe things that you hope that we can improve on in 2019, but then also some things that we can highlight from the past year, because I do feel like often it becomes very doom and gloom about sort of the state of this country and our society. So I'd love to pick some things out that people can, hang their hat on, but then also, be a little critical and think about ways that we can improve.
Well, so when I think about equity, as you said, it's an umbrella. Everything else we have to be using in a racial equity lens, particularly to look at all of our issues in Durham. And we do that on the city council. Everything we do, we think about. Well, we have to think about this. I mean, we talked already about the tree canopy and the inequitable distribution of just the tree canopy. We talked about the Durham Housing Authority. The people in Durham Housing Authority are overwhelmingly people of color. Durham has a child poverty rate for people of color of 37%. Child poverty rate, 37%. It's 8% for white people. I mean, the racial inequities in Durham it is still such a dominant force in our society and our culture. And we talked about criminal justice earlier, and of those people who have their driver's license revoked, they're overwhelmingly people of color. And so equity has got to be at the top of our list all the time. Everything we do, we have to be thinking of it that way. And I really think, my job as mayor, what is my job? My job is to work on changing that inequity, and that's what I try to do. And so I feel like we are, think about sort of symbolically what happened in Durham in the last year. A little bit longer ago than a year ago, the statue of the Confederate soldier came down, and then just a few weeks ago, the chancellor at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill decided she was going to remove the base of Silent Salmon. It appears pretty clearly it will never go back up again at the door to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. These are symbolic things, but they're important things. We've had a great committee during the last 6 months to look at what to do with that Confederate monument that came down in front of the courthouse. And I think they've made they have had a wonderful community conversation. There were 12 people on this committee, and those 12 people, they really ran the gamut. They were appointed by the city, county, and the county commission. We had a member of the Sons of the Confederate Veterans, all the way, to one of the chairs, Charmaine McKissick Melton. Her family's one of the, real pioneering families in Durham that integrated our schools.
She's a pretty good professor too.
Oh, have you had Charmaine? Okay, well, awesome, yeah. And so this group of 12 people came to unanimous agreement about what to do with the statue, which is very interesting, I think. And what their recommendation is, this is going to the county commissioners, not to us on the city council, but to our county commission, to take the statue in its crumpled form and put it in a room in the old courthouse where no one has to walk by it, so it would be a room away, but that anyone that wanted to come and see it as a kind of historical artifact could do so. It would be contextualized. The history of how it went up and the history of how it came down would both be there. And I think that's a great recommendation. But these symbols, these symbolic things have been, I think, really important. But they're not the most important thing. the most important thing is what are we doing every day on housing, on transportation, on
Right.
public safety, on the things that just you and I have been talking about just now. One of the things we've done this year, and I'm really proud of, is we have started a racial equity commission that has a 1-year term. It's being headed by Judge Elaine O'Neill, and who's also now at Central is she has a interim position, big position at Central right now, but Judge O'Neill is heading our racial equity task force. And they're going to come up during this year with ways in which they think Durham can work to become more racially equitable. Not only what the government can do, but what the community can do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that ongoing work. Our new Women's Council is working on the mayor's committee is working on how are we going to make things more equitable in Durham for women. And we've just started this, and it's going now. Our participatory budgeting work, we've set aside $2.4 million for participatory budgeting. So grassroots participation will decide how to spend that $2.4 million. So there's a whole process around that people will be able to get involved in and vote on projects that various neighborhoods propose. So that is also something to increase equity in Durham. We have a lot of, I think, one other, aside for our African American community and the inequities that they face, our immigrant communities, especially our Latinx community, is also really faced with a lot of inequities. And so we're the city government right now, we're in the midst of doing a language access plan so that we're making sure that everything that the city does is accessible to people in Spanish. These are things that are all at the top of the list and need to be. We have to keep equity at the very top of mind in everything we do. So that's work that is just, it's ongoing, it's every day, and it's everything.
Mm-hmm. As the demographics are changing in Durham, I think the last statistic I heard was from Adam Klein. 90 people a day were moving to this area. I don't know. I don't remember if it was Durham specifically or
the Triangle. 20 a day to Durham, 90 a day to the Triangle.
How does that break down demographically?
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. In my head, I have a certain idea of who those people are based on.
I bet you're wrong.
I would.
Let me hear who you think. I would
like to be.
Let me hear you think they are.
Based on the types of jobs that I know are being created here, as much as there is, good work being done around trying to position those jobs to be available to a wider swath of people. My guess is that a lot of the folks that are moving from out of town to claim those jobs tend to be more well-off, middle upper class, and white. But I would love to be proven wrong.
All right.
That's my assumption.
So let me tell you about our let me tell you about our in-migration and so for the people who are moving to Raleigh, you're right. But the Washington Post about a couple months ago now did a piece on the largest cities in the country, including Durham. We're about the 75th largest city in the country. And they looked at their in-migration. Durham is growing the 4th most per capita of any city in the country. People are pouring in here given our size. Mm-hmm. But here's what's interesting about our in-migration. We're in the top 10 in Asian American, African American, and white. And we're also very high in Latinx in migration. We have some of the most, not only are we a very diverse city, we have some of the most diverse in-migration of any city in the country. Maybe the most. And so I don't know about the socioeconomic status of those people. I mean, you talk about the people that are coming in here, are they well off or middle class? I think probably a lot of them are, I'm not sure. But the racial demographic I think is really fascinating because I think that our diversity is attracting diversity, which is great. But here's the other thing. I bet when you think of those people, you mostly think of young people. Your age. Yeah. The fastest growing demographic in terms of in-migration is people my age. I'm 67. They're moving here to be near family. They're moving here for the weather. They're moving here because the taxes are lower than New Jersey. They're moving here, did I say kids? Yeah, they have grandkids. They're moving here for the quality of life.
They're not coming for the dance parties at Pinhook every weekend?
They're probably not, but they may be coming for the dance festival.
Okay.
I'll tell you what else they're coming for. accessibility to really good health care. You know, when people get old, they start worrying about that, and we have Duke Hospital. So all those things are really bringing a lot of people who are immigrating to Durham from, you know, other cities, especially in the north, but who are moving here to retire.
Yeah, well, I mean, those people are definitely welcome to the dance parties. I don't want it to sound like I don't want them there. I would love to have a more diverse group of all kinds, age, race, gender, all that, when I go out every weekend. So please join us. What do you did mention some of those things. How much do you think that our university system and sort of the opportunities that are available now to folks coming out of, you know, Duke, Central, State, Chapel Hill, is affecting not only the growth but sort of the demographic change as well? Because again, my assumption is that based on those opportunities, folks that, you know, are from New Jersey, from Ohio, that come down to Duke, historically would move back to one of the more major cities, and now are deciding, you know, there's more opportunity here. There's also more to do here, so maybe I'll stick around for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think so.
Am I getting warmer? Does that seem?
No,
like
I think so. I think. I mean, I know. I think there are. I definitely know people who stay from Duke. I think most people that go to Duke, because it is a big national university, are going elsewhere for jobs, for sure. But there is a significant cohort that does stay in this area and in Durham. And I am really struck by the number of Central graduates that I'm meeting all the time, which is fantastic. They're, you know, mostly coming from North Carolina, because this, of course, is a state school. Right. But a lot of them are coming from other cities and small towns in North Carolina, and they fall in love with Durham just like everybody who lives here does.
Right.
And
something that I think about often, because we still live pretty close to Central, and you know, on the topic of equity, I think about how much can be done in that area. And one of the places that we did, I think it was the housing episode for Town Hall, was right, I think what used to be Few Gardens, if I'm not
Fayette Place. Fayette
Place
used to,
need to get all my historical landmarks correct.
Yeah.
But that, you know, is a huge swath of land.
Yes.
I imagine had it been on a different side of town, that, you know, it would have been completely filled up by now. But for whatever reason, it's sat. And I don't know the total history behind that. I'm sure we got into it in one of the older episodes, so people can go back and watch that and listen to it. But what will it take to bring more opportunity to places like sort of that strip of Fayetteville Street, where there is a university anchoring that neighborhood? There are some great houses there, some great communities. You know, in the pockets around Central, there's Phoenix Square. So how can we both incentivize sort of more growth there, but then also just think more strategically as a community about supporting more growth there as well? Yeah.
I mean, I think that the Fayetteville Street corridor is, you know, one of my concerns about the Fayetteville Street corridor is gentrification, because I think it is going to develop. And the question is it, you know, how is it going to develop? And we need to and help people be able to stay in their homes who live there. And so I think that's an issue that's going to be hard. You know, these are tough issues, but we can do things to help stabilize neighborhoods, a lot of which we've talked about in terms of housing. You and I have talked many times about them. But I also think that commercial corridor is a really important commercial corridor, that, you know, at the top of Fayetteville Street there. And I think that some good planning has to go on with the merchants there, and to try to figure out how to make that really successful for them.
Well, it sounds like you were headed in this direction, but if you could give our viewers and our listeners one thing an actionable one thing to do, or one thing to consider around the topic of equity going into 2019, what would it be? Yeah.
It's always hard for me to say one.
Yeah, right.
I'll say a few. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So one is, again, we have many boards and commissions in the city that work on these things. Our Women's Commission, our Racial Equity Task Force, that membership is set, and it's only running for a year. But the Mayor's Commission on Hispanic Latino relations, there are things that we do that people can apply to and participate in. So that's one thing. And then there is all the many wonderful and powerful advocacy groups that we have. The Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, Durham for All, the People's Alliance. I mean, these are groups that are working really hard all the time on racial equity, and people can join them and join their committees and task forces and try to figure out how to improve racial equity in our community. I mean, there's so many people working on this all the time. We have our Beltline Trail that we have now purchased. We have a big racial equity process around that. Before that gets built, we want to have a real racial equity process so that the people who live near the trail are able to participate in what the trail is going to be like, and are also able, and the amenities around it, and are also able to help stabilize their neighborhoods, because once the trail is there, that increases the value of the land. And so we'll need volunteer participation in that. So there's a whole lot of work that people can find their way to in Durham to advocate for and participate in building a city that is racially equitable. It's got to be at the top of our list.
Well, I think that's a great way to sum up this conversation that we've had. I always feel like any one of the topics that we cover each time, we could spend hours, and do often spend hours in other places in our life talking about these topics. But I'm really glad that we were able to chat and sort of set the table for not only the state of the city, which is, again, going to be February 18th, but also just thinking about Durham in 2019 and how we can improve this community that we care so much about. That's always something that people struggle with but are very intensely passionate about. And so having some context and being able to give some direction to channel that passion into affecting real change, I think is a great thing and a small part that we can play. So I'm very grateful for this time that we have.
Me too, Justin.
And the time that we have with our viewers. Thanks again. This has been episode 9 of Town Hall. You can find these episodes on the Clarion Content YouTube channel, on the website as well at clarioncontentmedia.com. You can follow along on all of our social channels at Clarion Content. You can find me on the internet, mostly on Twitter, at Buddy Ruski, BUDDYRUSKI. I'm trying to cut back, but if you have something interesting to say, I can't help but engage. So please reach out if you have more questions about the show, about Durham, topics that you're interested in that we can talk about. We'd love to get more viewer feedback to kind of drive our conversation. So please feel free to reach out and be sure to stay tuned. February 18th. Where can people watch the State of the City?
So Channel 8.
Okay. Will it be on the internet, on YouTube for us millennials?
It will be, for sure. Yeah,
great.
Absolutely.
State of the City for all to see. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time. Have a great week.
Have a great week.